Hey Sugar Geeks, Liz here. Today I am so excited because I'm going to be making a cake that you guys have been asking me for literal years. How to make an eggless cake, and bonus, how to make eggless frosting. It's coming up next on the Sugar Geek Show. When I tell you guys that I have tested so many egg replacers for this recipe, I mean, I had to stop, I think at 10. There are so many things that you can replace eggs with, but actually replacing the protein in an egg is really difficult to get the same taste and the same texture. So I started off with just kind of commercial egg replacers. It's usually a powder, and it's comprised of things like flaxseed or powdered milk, stuff like that. Natural egg replacers like applesauce, bananas, yogurt, tofu, and I even tried some weird stuff like straight pectin and gelatin. And what I discovered is pretty much everything works. It works, but it doesn't work. You might get a good rise out of something, but you might taste it. So like tofu and commercial egg replacers or like aquafaba, you can just taste that little bit of flavor from the replacer. And other times you don't taste any flavor, but the texture is just a little bit off. So ultimately what I discovered is that there is no 100% replacement for egg, but you can get pretty darn close. I even tested what would happen if you didn't put any eggs in your chocolate cake at all, because I actually saw something that said that you could just use extra water. Spoiler alert, that's a lie. It just collapsed down in the center and did not look good. So after testing all of those different replacers, I felt like the applesauce and the banana and probably the commercial egg replacer did the best. So the ratio that I ended up with was about 1/4 cup, which is 2.5 ounces of unsweetened applesauce. Make sure it's unsweetened, per egg. Applesauce has pectin in it, and pectin binds with the liquids and the gluten in your cake and creates a structure very similar to an egg. Not exactly, but similar. I also want to let you guys know that I only tested this with my easy chocolate cake recipe. So if you're gonna use the applesauce replacer for any other recipe or any of my recipes, your results may vary. I don't know if they would turn out the same. I did try the applesauce with my vanilla cake recipe, which uses the reverse creaming method, and it just collapsed and was very sunken down. So even that I would have to tweak further. My suggestion to you is if you have a cake recipe that's not this one that you really like, try switching out the applesauce and then tweak it a little bit more with the baking powder and the moisture content until you feel like it's just right. Okay, so let's stop the talking and let's go ahead and make this cake. Making the easy chocolate cake without eggs is very easy. You're just gonna add all of your dry ingredients into your bowl, all of the wet ingredients, minus the hot coffee. Mix it up for 2 minutes. That develops that structure, incorporates air, very important. And then at the very end, we're gonna add in that hot coffee. Hot coffee adds moisture, it also adds flavor, and then it also activates the cocoa powder so that your cake doesn't taste dry. I should make a note that I did try this recipe with Dutch cocoa powder and Hershey's cocoa powder. One is alkalized, so it's neutral, which is the Dutch cocoa powder. And then I also tried the Hershey's, which is natural cocoa powder. It's acidic. The Dutch cocoa powder has a deeper, richer, chocolatier flavor, and the Hershey's has a lighter, more traditional chocolate cake flavor. So you can decide which one you like. All right, now you're gonna divide your batter into 2 pans. I used 8-inch pans, or you could use 3 6-inch pans if you wanted to, or any size cake pan you want, just different size pans, different times of baking, right? I have already covered mine in some cake goop, which is my homemade pan release recipe, which is on Sugar Geek Show. I like to use a scale to just test myself, see how even they are. I like my layers to be even. We're gonna bake them at 350 degrees for 35 to 45 minutes because depending on your oven, it might take longer, and you wanna make sure that that toothpick comes out with just a couple sticky crumbs on it. Don't overbake them. Once your cakes are cooled in the pan for about 10 minutes or so, you can turn them upside down and flip them out. After they've been cooling, for a little bit, you can wrap them up in some plastic wrap and put them in the freezer if you don't plan on frosting them right away. Or you could stick them into the freezer unwrapped and just wait maybe 30 minutes to an hour, and then you can frost them. All right, our cake has cooled down. I want to cut into it and kind of see what the texture looks like, how fluffy it is, and I mean, I guess we have to taste it too. Ooh, it smells good. Oh, that looks nice. I'm noticing that this has a pretty even crumb. It's not too gooey. I would say it's a tiny bit fudgier than normal. I would say that it's a tiny bit fudgier than normal, and that could just because it's very slightly warm and I was a little impatient, but I wouldn't say it's like doughy or, you know, unevenly risen or anything. So I'm happy with that. I probably shouldn't have taken that big of a bite. So the flavor tastes just like chocolate cake. It has a nice rise to it, but it's just like way fudgier, you know? So I feel like it just doesn't have that super delicate cake texture that traditional cake has. It's almost like eating peanut butter where it kind of sticks to the inside of your mouth, and you definitely need some milk nearby. So now we're gonna make our Ermine frosting, which if you've never had Ermine frosting, I don't blame you. It's kind of an old-fashioned recipe. But if you've ever had one of those like old-fashioned Hostess cupcakes that have like the creamy center, that's basically what Ermine frosting is. It's very light, very fluffy, and naturally egg-free. If you don't wanna make Ermine frosting, you could also do just like a traditional American buttercream, which is also eggless. All right, so the first thing we have to do is whisk together our sugar and our flour and toast it over medium heat for about 2 minutes. So Liz, why are we cooking the flour? I'm so glad you asked. And this just starts the process of cooking the flour, making sure you don't have that raw flour taste in your frosting, and also just giving it some toasted yummy flavor. And then we're going to mix in our milk and whisk, 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 whisk. This took a while actually for this milk to kind of come to a boil, but as it started getting hotter and hotter, you could tell it was getting thicker and thicker and thicker. All right, so this isn't quite boiling yet, but I can definitely feel that it's getting thicker. But just make sure you keep whisking because the bottom of the pan can burn the milk and it can burn the sugar. So work those arm muscles. Okay, so after it starts coming to a simmer, we're gonna cook it for about like 1 minute and then we'll remove it from the heat. Just to make sure that we just get all that cooked flour taste out. All right, I'm gonna pour this through a strainer just in case I have any lumps, because I don't like lumpy buttercream. Okay. I had a couple little lumps in there, not too bad. And then you're gonna cover it with some plastic wrap. Make sure the plastic wrap is touching the surface of the flour mixture so it doesn't get a skin on it. And then you want that to cool completely. And this will take a while. So this is a good thing to actually make the day before. You can just keep it in the fridge and then it's good to go. I actually poured mine into a sheet pan, like a cake pan, because it just spreads it out and makes it like thinner and more surface area. So all of the heat could like escape faster. I put it in the freezer and like 30 minutes later, it was like good to go. So now we're going to take our softened butter. I mean, like you can press your finger into the butter and it leaves a mark, but it's not melted, right? It's still holding its shape. We're gonna put that into our mixer with the whisk attachments and beat that for a couple minutes until it's nice and white and fluffy. Basically, we're incorporating lots of air. And then we're gonna take our cooled flour mixture, transfer it to a piping bag, and just mix it on medium high, and squeeze that piping bag and just let it go in there. When the first time I made Ermine frosting, I read something that you like take a spoon and like spoon it in. And it was so messy. I was just like dribbling flour mixture everywhere. So the piping bag works really well. That was a tip from one of our viewers. Thank you very much, whoever you are, because it works so much better. And then you just keep mixing that. And the key to getting your Ermine frosting nice and smooth is to incorporate that flour mixture in really slowly, right? I do notice that when I make Ermine frosting in my Bosch, it gets really fluffy though, and it ends up almost being like too fluffy. So I do take it out of the Bosch, I put it into my KitchenAid, and I mix it for like 5-10 minutes on low because I just don't like those bubbles. I know that you're like, you want me to take it out of one mixer and put it into another mixer? No, you don't have to do that, but I'm just letting you know to be aware of that. If you're like, why are there so many bubbles in this frosting? It's just because the Bosch is too powerful. All right, so now I'm gonna add in my vanilla and salt and then whip it until it's combined and our Ermine frosting will be complete. All right, so now we're gonna start frosting our cake. I am gonna level off the dome just so it's nice and flat on top. Beautiful crumb. adding a good 1/2-inch layer of that delicious Ermine frosting in the center. And a couple people have asked me, you know, like, can you color Ermine frosting? Can you make it ahead of time? And the answer is yes, you can color it, but no, you cannot make it ahead of time because it does set kind of like, you know, gelatin does, and it just isn't smooth and creamy anymore. So you want to make it when you're ready to use it. And then we're gonna put a thin coat around the outside, pop it back into the fridge for about 15 minutes, just until that crumb coat is set. Then we can put our final layer of super smooth, bubbleless Ermine frosting around the outside. I'm gonna use my bench scraper to smooth out the sides. We're gonna smooth out the upper edge like so. And then I'm gonna do a very simple rope border just around the top with my 1M piping tip. Just little spirals. If you ever need to stop, you stop at the bottom right here so that you can start again and loop right over. Oh, that's the back. And a few sprinkles to just festive it up a little bit, and voila, our eggless cake recipe is complete. Adorable. Is that the happiest little eggless cake you ever saw? Oh, so soft. The two things together, chef's kiss. This is definitely a super chocolatey, very fudgy cake, and that is not a bad thing. If you want to see more videos like this one, don't forget to check out our other videos right here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down there, and I will see you guys next week. Bye. Wait, are there eggs in this? Okay, no, there's no eggs.
Yikes.
That was a close one.